You get this because it's a learned thing. It's taught to you. This is not something that you just have. The brain will always choose what is comfortable over what is good or what is right. Not because it's what they want, but because it's what their brain understands. But it is your choice to change. You choose what life you want. You choose what life you have. Fighting for equal rights, they're fighting for special privileges in our society. We no longer have a sense of purpose. Figure out what that is, and that's your sense of meaning. Share it with somebody else, and that's your sense of purpose. Alrighty, my friends, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Alpha Insight podcast. My goodness, am I excited for this episode. I'm kind of... There was a couple topics I wanted to talk about and before, but I didn't have enough information for those topics. And so I was doing a lot of research into this. The first topic we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be going over the victim mentality and entitlement. And at the end, if we still have some time, I would really love to talk about finding your purpose and stuff like that. So that's kind of like each one of these topics is kind of like I could do an entire episode on those topics. But with the way I talk, I don't know. It would be really difficult. And these kind of mix together very well. So today, be sure to stick around till the end because we are going to be talking about finding your purpose, especially after last week's episode, which was insane. If you listen to the whole thing, I'm super stoked. Thank you for doing that. All right. So, man, I'm sorry. It's been a long day for me. I'm leaving on vacation tomorrow. Got a lot of stuff to do before I leave. And I have to record this episode, so I'm super stoked for this one, though, because, man, the looking around... Okay. Before we do get into today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you share a link to one of your friends, one of your family members, maybe somebody, share it to anybody and everybody, right? That would help me out. I would super appreciate that. I did see some of the reposts on Instagram and stuff like that, and I really appreciate you guys for doing that. That means a lot. I'm trying to grow the podcast, though. I want to grow it, and I want to get as many people to listen to this as I possibly can, and I can't do that without your help. So if you could leave a rating or review on whatever platform you're listening on, that would also be super helpful. But a lot of good content lately. I'm super stoked for everything. And man, I just thank you for listening. I do put a lot of work and effort into these episodes, but it wouldn't mean anything if I didn't have anybody listening. And a lot of you guys are coming back weekly. So I very much appreciate you. If you're one of those people, send me a message on Instagram or whatever. Give the Instagram a follow or the Facebook. I'm posting reels on there just about every day now. So go check it out. It's pretty sweet. Man, what a long intro. So now that I got that out of the way, the boring stuff, we're going to be talking about the victim mentality and entitlement. This is a serious topic, and this is something that I want to make sure that I say this right because it could go very wrong. But these are major issues that we're seeing in our society today. And so, me being me, I want to talk about them. And of course, as always, I've done a lot of research into these topics. I have several research links, and I always encourage you to fact check me. Don't just believe everything everybody's saying all the time. Go look it up for yourself. I always encourage that. So let's start off this episode with asking the question, what is the victim mentality? The victim mentality can be defined by these things. Number one, bad things have happened in the past and will continue to happen to you. This is what you think if you have the mentality. Bad things have happened in the past and will continue to happen to you. Others are to blame for your misfortune. There is no point in trying to make a change because it will not work. The world is against you. People are against you. The victim mentality, in its simplest form, that's what it is. A lot of the time, the victim mentality, it forms because of past trauma, distress, and pain. Like the victim mentality is not just something you have. And I'm going to get more into that in a few minutes, but you get this because it's a learned thing. It's taught to you. This is not something that you just have on your own. So let's talk a little bit about why do people have this victim mentality? Because for some of you listening, you're like, wow, I would never think that way. I don't know why people would think so negatively about things or about the world, right? But others of you are thinking, yeah, it's true. Like the world is against me. People are against me. The odds are against me or whatever it is, right? So I want to get everybody up to date on this. And so everybody understands why people have the victim mentality. So it relieves pressure from themselves about things that are going wrong in their lives. So people who have this mentality, they shift blame on other people and other things. Very common thing with people who have this mindset. It's very difficult for them to take the blame for their own mistakes or even take responsibility for their own lives or things that are going on in their life. Even if it's their fault, they have a very difficult time taking responsibility for those for things that go wrong. And a lot of times this is caused from lack of coping skills in the past. Like I said, this is a learned thing. Like you don't just wake up and have it. It's not like a mental disorder. This is learned. So it's a lot of times it's caused from lack of coping skills in the past. When there was a traumatic event or distress or pain, your brain learns this. It doesn't just happen. And people form this mentality from learning it, but not only learning it, but staying in it. So the way the brain works is its function is to understand and create order in chaos. Like I was looking at I went deep into this, okay? When I get on a topic, you know this already. When I get into a topic, I figure out everything about it, okay? And a part of this topic was understanding the brain a little bit, okay? So let's talk about the brain for a second. I guess all right. Anyways, it gets your brain, its function is to understand, create order in chaos, solve problems. And when people have this mentality, it gets hard to get out of because it becomes comfortable coping this way. So to understand the brain, some of you may be thinking, like, why would people stay in this mentality? It's so negative or whatever it is, right? But some of you may have this mentality, and it's very hard to think differently. Same with like depression, anxiety, like anything. When you're reteaching your brain something, it's a lot harder because the brain will always choose what is comfortable over what is good or what is right. So a lot of times when people grow up learning this victim mentality, they grow up learning that everything's against them and there's no point in trying anymore. That's how their brains have wired to cope with things. You see what I'm saying? So, and even they themselves may even view having this mentality as being wrong, but they're not going to change it because it's so hard to change the way you think, the way you cope with things, right? Nobody wants to do the work right now anymore, right? So this is why when you see someone in a toxic, when you see someone in a toxic relationship and it seems they never leave this relationship or every person they get with is toxic because it starts at a young age. where they don't find value in themselves. And so their brain becomes comfortable with this. It becomes comfortable with the idea of, I have no value. And, they when someone who doesn't feel they deserve much or they have much value or deserve to be treated well, they will look for someone who is toxic. Not because it's what they want, but because it's what their brain understands and is comfortable with. You see what I'm saying? Like, a lot of times these people aren't super stoked to be in a toxic relationship, but this is the way that their brain understands. It creates order in chaos. And it all started with a past trauma or some pain in their life. And they started losing value in themselves, right? And it builds and builds and builds and builds. And so now it's like, anyways. So the same goes for the victim mentality. Like, it's often not their fault they are feeling this way about the world, but it is their choice to change. It is, and I say they because I know it's not you, because you're a stud, right? You're awesome. You're listening to the podcast. Obviously, you're amazing. If you are struggling with this stuff, like, look, it's not your fault you're feeling this way about the world, but it is your choice to change. You choose what life you want. You choose what life you have. So, people don't often change their mindset, though, and that's something I've had to come to realize pretty quick, especially when I'm talking about some of the topics that I talk about, and in the depression community, talking with a lot of other people struggling with mental illnesses and stuff like that. People don't like to change because, and a couple weeks ago, I did an episode about why you choose to stay in depression. It's the same reason here, because that's how your brain is comfortable with that, right? That's how it has learned to cope with things. People don't often change their mindset because it's painful to try and change. It's difficult and it's uncomfortable, so we choose to have a poor mindset. Like, it's very uncomfortable and difficult to change the way your brain copes with things. And so people don't often try, but also because a lot of times people don't have somebody to go to for help with this stuff. Like, people don't have a good teacher. People don't have somebody cheering them on when it gets difficult. So it's like they might try and change the way they think for a little while, and it may work a little bit, but then, like, it becomes very difficult and uncomfortable, and then they quit because they don't have somebody to teach them, right? So, and this also, like, the victim mentality, it's kind of like that. It's kind of comes from that little topic that I talked about last week, learned helplessness. That's what this is. It's learned helplessness. If you didn't listen to last episode, go check it out, because that was a banger episode, super good episode. But that's what this is learned helplessness. When there's so much going on around us, we don't even know where to start. When there's so many problems to fix and so many problems to solve, we just decide not to fix anything because there's no point in trying. Learned helplessness. So, a couple things to understand about the victim mentality. As I already stated, the victim mentality is not just a choice, but it is also learned. It is learned. It's a learned mindset that can be unlearned. People who have the victim mentality are in an abusive relationship. And before you get super confused with me, what I mean by that is not necessarily with someone else, but with themselves. And we stay in this mentality because we don't believe there's a way out. Like, we don't see another way of viewing things, because this is how we grew to learn. This is how our brain works. This is how you've coped with things for so long. You don't believe there's another way, right? So let me pivot here and say the victim mentality. I wanted to know, like, what does the victim mentality cause, right? And like one of the number one things that I was finding was the victim mentality. So we know what this is, right? It's it's kind of like a learned helplessness. It's like a pessimistic view of the world. Everybody's against you, everything's against you. But also, victim mentality people are often looking for some sort of compensation for their, which I don't know why I didn't talk about all the causes of victim mentality or whatever, but it causes a lot of problems in our society. And one of those big problems that the victim mentality causes is entitlement. And you may be thinking, like, entitlement isn't so, like, everybody's kind of entitled. Everybody is entitled to some degree, right? But this causes a much greater form of entitlement. I don't even know how to explain this. The victim mentality is where we feel we have been wronged, right? The world has done us wrong. People have done us wrong. Life is against me. And when we feel wronged, we feel we deserve compensation or some sort of pity or privilege. Let me give an example from my own life. Okay. So, after everything had happened with my sister having cancer and all that stuff, if you want to know more about that, you could go check out past episodes. I have a couple episodes about my story and stuff like that. So, after the whole cancer thing, I had felt I had it worse than so many other people. And I deserved to be happy. I had grown a sense of entitlement in some ways, you know? So cancer happens and whatever, all this pain and trauma or whatever, right? And I'm like, I don't deserve that. I'm a kid, like I don't deserve that. I deserve happiness. And so I would justify to myself and other people that I deserve to be happy because my young life was in a way taken from me. So I got into drugs and later alcohol, believing I deserved to be happy. I was hoping for people to pity me. I craved it. I needed it. And this is what happens very commonly when people have this victim mentality and a high sense of entitlement. I didn't feel like I was above anyone, but it was more of a sense of wanting my feelings reassured. I wanted that pity. I wanted, that reassurance of my feelings or whatever, right? And going down that road for so long, I created a very real sense of entitlement. Later on down the line, I was putting myself before anybody else. I was putting myself above others, thinking I deserved it the whole time. Like most of the time, I didn't even notice myself being like so entitled. Most of the time, you don't see it because like you think I deserve it, right? And so I didn't see it for a long time. My judgment was clouded. And this kind of started because of the cancer stuff. And then I kind of was like, well, everything's against me. Everybody's against me. The world's against me, right? And then I create this sense of entitlement from that. I deserve special privileges because I had so much pain. Now, entitlement is becoming a much more popular thing today. If you look it up, like entitlement is becoming a very talked about thing, like a very common thing. People are entitled these days. I don't blame them living in the world that we live in. I don't blame them at all. I don't blame, of course. So, have you noticed the amount of sensitivity among young people today? Have you noticed that because we are sensitive about being misgendered or so sensitive about hate speech, the rules are changing to coddle these people, which is only driving the entitlement even further. But this is a very large issue today, the entitlement, and it's not okay. We think we deserve so much, but really we don't. You don't deserve it. You think that you deserve to live in a nice house. You think you deserve a comfortable life, but you don't. Like a lot of people are fighting for like equal pay and stuff. And it's like, You want equal pay when you're going to sit at home watching TV all day compared to the guy who's out working 16-hour shifts? That doesn't seem very fair. But you think that just because you were born in the United States that you deserve to be comfortable. You deserve whatever, right? No, this country does not owe you anything. It has already given you an opportunity. The United States, by the way. So people don't just want to be themselves anymore. Like, let me give you an example on how bad entitlement is today. Okay, so people don't just want to be themselves anymore. They want society to give them special attention. This is entitlement. They want special privileges. They deserve more because XYZ, right? The easiest way for me to explain this is the LGBT whatever community. And disclaimer, I don't hate these people whatsoever. I love these people. Amazing people. Like, go do your thing, right? Like, I could care less. I don't hate people. Like, that's not me, okay? Go do your whatever you're going to do. But people going and changing their identities or genders and expect everyone to call them by their specific pronouns, that's not okay. On top of that, people getting canceled for even making what may be called a sensitive joke. College professors getting fired for talking about race. Everybody's so sensitive these days, and everybody's so entitled these days. Like, a lot of these movements now are not just for fighting for equal rights, they're fighting for special privileges in our society. Have you noticed these things? And you know what? If you think about it, like, you could go, like, be gay or whatever. Like, that's totally cool. Like, go do your thing. I could care less, right? But why are you trying to make it a society issue? And I'm not saying all people are doing this, all, like, gay people are doing this or anything, like, right? Like, not everybody is like that. But, like, I'm saying go do your thing. That's totally cool. But why do we have to make it a political issue? You see what I'm saying? Because people were fighting for privilege because we have been hated for so long. We have been discriminated against. We have been fill in the blank. But to some point, what are you fighting for? You know, do we ever ask this question? Like, what are we fighting for? Because a lot of times these days, we're not fighting for equal rights. We're fighting for privilege, extra privilege. And where does this come from? It comes from entitlement because I deserve, right? And this is like a topic where I can be like, a lot of people can be very upset with me for talking about this. But if you know me, you know I don't hate people. I love it. You know, go do your thing, whatever. But these issues are, you know, interpret it how you want, okay? But I'm not going to apologize for if somebody's feelings got hurt, you know? Like, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off topic here. So let's get back to the topic. But with people like this who are like overly sensitive, you know, like, I deserve more, I deserve. It's not that they want to be equal, but they're fighting for privileges above others. And like I said, not all people are doing this. Like, not all people in these communities are doing this. I recognize that. I know that. But you see my point. Everyone is expecting a higher pay. People are expecting to live comfortably no matter how much work you do or don't do. People are expecting respect from others when that's something that is to be earned. People are expecting society to change because their feelings got hurt. The list goes on and on and on. And the issue, like, the entitlement issue is not only caused by the victim mentality. There's a 100 reasons why we have such high entitlement. But the victim mentality does cause a lot of entitlement in people. But entitlement is growing because we have forgotten how to be grateful for what we already have. With media playing a role and our access to everything as soon as we want it, we think we deserve things that are already a privilege to have. You see what I'm saying? The rise of entitlement. And so, how are we going to fix these issues? Jameson, that's great. You gave a lot of information. Cool. But how are we going to fix these issues? I recognize that. Okay. Now that we all know that these are issues, how do we fix that? It's not just an overnight fix, right? This is okay. Okay. So, victim mentality. First of all, warning. Here's some tough love for you. Okay. I'm sorry, but it has to be said. You need to grow a pair, take control over your life, take some responsibility. You live in such an amazing time. Take advantage of it and become who you are meant to become. Like, seriously, what are you going to do for your whole life? You're going to blame the world? You're going to, like, why would you choose to stay in this mentality the rest of your life? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. It's comfortable. Your brain works that way. But like, if you're sick and tired of being where you're at, if you're sick and tired of everything happening to you and, like everything sucks and like life is just against me, like get out of it. Take responsibility and change. Like seriously. It's not fun to hear, especially if you are dealing with that, but man, you have such you live in such an amazing time. Like it's a privilege to live in the day and age that we are living in. Be grateful for that. And instead of looking at the world like everything is happening, everything's against you, why don't you like look at it like instead of the world happening to you, why don't you like you happen to the world? If that makes any sense whatsoever. Become who you are meant to become. Teach yourself to be more grateful. Like sometimes it's not an overnight thing, right? But teach yourself to be more grateful. Think about anything and absolutely everything you already have everyday things, and recognize you truly don't deserve anything. And it's a miracle you are where you are already. It's a blessing that you are where you are already. You have what you have, even if it's not much. When you choose to be grateful, your entire view shifts. It changes. You no longer look in it for what's in it for me, right? So it becomes hard to become who you are meant to be if you don't have a sense of purpose. And that's one of the biggest reasons the victim mentality and entitlement is going crazy, because we no longer have a sense of purpose. The majority of people no longer have a sense of purpose. So, have you ever found have you found your sense of purpose? Do you know why you're here? What are you supposed to be? What can you be? Who can you help? So, have you found your sense of purpose? When we don't find purpose, we look to things to fulfill us. And if you ask anyone who has been to the moon and back, had all the money in the world, had all the things, all the people, the women, the whatever they wanted, had all that they wanted, they would tell you it doesn't satisfy. You need a sense of purpose. You need fulfillment. And how does one find their purpose? And why is purpose such a big deal? Like, why is this so important? Because if we had a sense of purpose, we would be looking at the world like, what can I give? What can I offer to other people? How can I help someone else today? Instead of looking at the world like, what's in it for me? Instead of looking at everything like, what do I get out of this? I deserve this. And there's this psychiatrist who was talking a lot about this and was linking all this stuff together. The victim mentality and entitlement and finding a sense of purpose. But how do you find your purpose? You spend time alone with yourself. Now, I have said it before, and I'm going to say it again, but you need to get away from all this stimulation. Have you ever heard of people going on a 6-month trip or an 8-month trip or whatever, like to go find themselves in the mountains hiking? Like, have you ever heard of that? Most of you have, like there will be people every once in a while. They're like, I'm going to go hiking in the mountains and go find myself. I'll be back later. And then they come back like 6 months later, 8 months later, and they're just a completely different person. Because what they did was spend time with themselves. They came back totally changed because they spent time in their own minds. And that's something we don't do often anymore, ever. Like, we don't process things anymore. Why would we? There's so many things to do. There's so much stuff I have to do. There's whatever, right? Learn to spend time with your own thoughts. No distractions. You don't even have to go on a 6-month hiking trip in the mountains. Okay, it doesn't have to be some 6-month trip in the mountains, but you can even do a 30-minute time with yourself every single day. Sit, be still. If you're somebody who really struggles with being still or thinking, because a lot of people do have a real hard time just being with themselves and thinking, being with their own minds, just learn to be still and think. And when you spend time understanding yourself, when you spend time understanding and spending this time with yourself, you will find your sense of purpose. But we don't have a sense of purpose because we don't ever spend time with ourselves. The victim mentality is such a big issue today. And the entitlement is such a big issue today. Like, we all think that I deserve so much and whatever, when you just need to be grateful for what you have. It's a lot easier said than done. But the world doesn't owe you. It's what do you owe the world? Because we all have gifts. We've all been given gifts. We all have talents. We're all good at something. Figure out what that is, and that's your sense of meaning. Share it with somebody else, and that's your sense of purpose. And we're so caught up in this what's in it for me lifestyle because everything's so fast and we get whatever we want whenever we want it. And it's causing us to be angry. We are becoming angry people. We are becoming impatient. We are not loving each other, right? The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. But you need to stop thinking about how the world has wronged you and start thinking about, okay, how am I going to, if you ever think about this, winners, it's not that they don't fail, but it's that they get back up when they fall. Losers could be winning all the time, but the difference between winner and loser is a loser doesn't get back up. Loser doesn't try again. So, man, does that not upset anybody? But anyways, my friends, that is all I had to say about the topics we talked about today. I did a bit of a very, very different script style for this episode. And there was so much information for each, victim mentality, entitlement, and finding a sense of purpose, but they all kind of just went together. So, man, I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode because I wanted to try something new with the script and everything, but I also didn't know how else I would present this topic to you. If you enjoyed it, though, please, 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 please message me on Instagram or Facebook at Alpha Insight Podcast, or you can, if you didn't like it, please text me on Instagram or Facebook at Alpha Insight Podcast. That would be super appreciated. I want to hear your feedback. I want to know I'm putting out good content, and if it was helpful at all, let me know your thoughts. That would be super appreciated. Again, if you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a rating or review on whatever platform you're listening on. That would really help boost my listeners, and it makes the algorithm kind of send it out to more people. That would be awesome. Repost something that I post during the week on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I'm posting all the time, so help me grow this thing, because I want to help people, and I can't do that without your help. So next week, I'm not sure what I'm going to be talking about. I do hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for listening. Be grateful. Contribute. I love you all. Thank you again. Have a wonderful week.